Hi, I'm Judy and I'm the designer of the Kolokitha Beach Sock. Today I'm going to show you how to work the wrap and turn heel. Now I work this wrap and turn heel deeper into the instep just to make it a more comfortable fit for a trainer sock. So let's get started. My starting point for this tutorial is the final round of the last of the 5 rounds straight after you'd worked the heel tab. So you work up until the last 2 stitches are remaining on that round. So that's 2 stitches before the beginning of the round. So at this point, if you're working on a short circular, you can replace your beginning of round marker at this point. If you're working on DPNs or the magic loop, you can slip your 2 stitches back onto the needle that's going to be your first needle. So you're rearranging all your stitches. You're going to rearrange your stitches so that you've got all your heel stitches on that first needle. So we have to slip these stitches from the second needle onto your first needle. So 1, 2, I have 14, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. And because I'm working a deeper heel, I'm going to slide the next 2 stitches from the next needle onto my first needle as well. And we'll be working along all these heel stitches back and forth, working 1 stitch less each row until we're left with a section of stitches in the middle, and then we'll go on to part 2 of the wrap and turn heel. So we start by slipping the first stitch, and this avoids a gap when it comes to working back in the round. So slip that first stitch and then knit across the rest of the heel stitches until you come to the last 2, and I'll see you then. So here we are just about at our last 2 stitches. So we're going to wrap this stitch here and ignore the stitch at the end so that it matches the slip stitch at the beginning of the row. We bring our yarn forward, we slip the next stitch onto our right hand needle, take the yarn back, slip the stitch back onto the left hand needle, and look, we've made a little wrap around the stitch. We then turn our work around and we purl across the stitches until we come to the last 2 stitches on this side. So there we are at our last 2 stitches. We're going to leave the very last stitch, so we're going to wrap the next stitch. So take your wool to the back, slip the stitch onto your right needle, bring the yarn forward, slip your stitch back, and turn your work. Ready to knit across these stitches again. You see that wrapped stitch, the first stitch? So carry on just knitting across your whole row again until you come to the stitch before the first wrapped stitch that you did. Yep, just one more, and we're at the stitch before the previously wrapped stitch. So we're now going to wrap and turn this stitch. So yarn forward, slip the stitch, yarn back, and slip the stitch back onto your left hand needle. We've still got that unworked first stitch, and we've now got 2 wrapped stitches. Turn your work and purl across until you reach the same point on the purl side as you've just done on the right side of your work. And here's that stitch before the last wrapped stitch. Yarn forward, slip stitch, yarn back, slip stitch back onto your left needle and turn the work. So we now have 2 wrapped stitches on that side, 2 wrapped stitches on that side, and all our centre stitches, which will work a wrap and turn until we get to the number of stitches that it tells you in the pattern. So I'll rejoin you at the point when we've got another 2 wrap and turn rows to go before we move on to the next part of the pattern. So here we are, we have 1 unworked stitch on each side and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 wrapped stitches. See that last wrapped stitch? And then on the other side, the 1 unworked stitch and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 wrapped stitches on that side. So that should leave us with an even number of unworked stitches. So I've got 10 stitches. My pattern tells me to go down to 8 unworked stitches. So I'll do another 2 rows of wrap and turns. So knit across 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and there we are. Yarn forward, slip stitch, yarn back, slip stitch. Turn the work, and this time I'll be purling along 8 stitches, wrap and turn, and that will mean that I have 8 unworked stitches in the middle. So there's our unworked stitch, yarn back, slip stitch, yarn forward, slip stitch, turn work. And we're ready to start the second part of the heel, which will involve picking up the wraps and knitting them with the stitches, but also creating more wraps so that we can turn our work. So we knit across to the first wrapped stitch, and then I'll show you the method for picking up the wrap and working it together with the stitch. So there's our first wrapped stitch. You see the wrap around it. We slip the stitch onto the right hand needle. We slide the tip of our left hand needle up and under that wrap, and then slide the stitch back onto the left needle with the wrap and work into the back of both the stitches and knit them together. Now we have to wrap the next stitch so that we can turn our work. So as before, just wrap and turn the stitch. You can see it's now got 2 wraps. I forgot to slip that one back, but it's okay. And then we'll purl along that row until we reach the first wrap on this side. And it's a slightly different method on the purl side, because obviously you're having to purl into the back of the stitch, or stitches this time, on a purl row. So here's that first wrapped stitch. You see there's the wrap. So we're going to slip the stitch onto the right hand needle. Again with the left hand needle, go underneath that wrap, pick it up, and this time slip it onto the right hand needle along with the stitch. Now we take our left needle and go behind and into the back of the stitch from underneath. So round the back, up through both the wrap and the stitch. Flick your needle round and purl that stitch. And then we're going to wrap that stitch, so yarn forward, slip the stitch, yarn back and slip the stitch back onto the left hand needle and turn your work. Now this time we're going to have to pick up both the wraps and knit them with the stitch. So effectively you're going to be knitting what feels like 3 stitches together. So we get up to the next wrap stitch and we should be nearly there. There we are. So this one should have 2 wraps. Do you see? 1 and 2. And we work it the same way as we worked it with a single wrap, so slipping the stitch onto the right hand needle, but this time putting your left hand needle under both the wraps. See both the strands of yarn there? Slipping your stitch back on the left hand needle and knitting into the back of, in effect, these 3 stitches, so the 2 wraps and the stitch. And then we wrap and turn again the next stitch. So we've got 2 wraps there and slip the stitch back and turn your work. Okay, same for the purl side. So purl along until you meet that first double wrapped stitch. And this time we'll be picking up both the purl wraps and purling into the back of, in effect, 3 stitches, the 1 stitch on your needle and the 2 wraps. So there it is. You see it's got 2 wraps around it. Slip the stitch onto the right hand needle, left hand needle, pick up the 2 wraps, slide them back onto the right hand needle, and then work into, go underneath and purl into the back, into the back of these 3 loops. Flick your needle round and purl the 3 loops together. Wrap and turn your next stitch. Turn your work and you're ready to knit across. Now you can see where the stitches were purled together there. So knit across till we get to the next double wrapped stitch. And there it is. Slip your stitch, pick up the wraps with the left hand needle, slide your stitch onto the left hand needle and knit into the back of these 3 stitches. Wrap and turn the next stitch, so forward, slip, back and slip and turn your work. And purl along until you meet your next double wrapped purl stitch. There she is. So yeah, with the double wraps there. So slip the stitch back onto your right hand needle, pick up the wraps with your left hand needle, pop them onto your right hand needle and purl into the back from underneath through the 3 loops and purl. And wrap and turn. continue working back and forward across your row, and I'll rejoin you when we have one unresolved double stitch on each side. So we've reached our final double wrapped stitch on the right side. You see the double wrap there, and we have one remaining stitch unworked. So we pick up the wraps again as before and work into the back of the knit stitch. And then we have to wrap and turn this remaining stitch, and it'll just have one wrap, but we have to turn our work. So we have to wrap it and it closes up some gaps. Wrap and turn, slip it back. Oops. That's it. And turn the work and then purl along until we reach the last purl side wrap and turn double stitch. Now make sure you pull your yarn tightly here, and this will avoid any gaps as well for that first stitch. Give it a good tug and purl across. And here we are at our very last wrapped stitch. So slip purlwise, and you see there's our first slip stitch at the very start of the heel. Put your needles under, pick up the wraps and purl into the back of them. There we are. And then we wrap and turn that first slip stitch. So just the same as before, just so that we can turn our work around again and close up the gaps. Turn our work and make sure that this one is pulled nice and tightly so that there's no holes at that corner. So give it a really good tug and continue to knit across the heel. We're nearly at the end of the heel now, and we're going to pick up that single wrap that was around the first stitch on the needle. So as before, slip your stitch onto the right hand needle, lift up with your left, slide the stitch back and knit through the back. And we're ready to revert back to working in the round. So we'll work across these needles, across the heel needle. We still have one stitch to resolve there, one wrapped stitch there. So start working in the round, and again make sure that you give it a nice good tug before you move on to avoid any holes in the corners. So we've just about finished working in the round, and we're going to come across that one unresolved wrapped stitch on our first needle. There it is. Now, the wrap on that stitch can be tight, so you have to really get up and underneath it to pull it up on the needle. You can see it from the back, but not so clear, because remember that was a slipped stitch. So get your needle underneath it, just work it up and slip it on the same needle as the stitch itself. And it's quite awkward, it's quite tight. There we go, and then knit the two stitches together, making sure you don't knit it with the next stitch, because it is so tight, they're all very close together. But that just makes sure that there's no holes in the corner. Okay, and then continue to knit in the round, and that's your heel complete. If you work another couple of rounds, and then you can have a look at what your heel looks like. So there we have it, our deep wrap and turn heel. If you felt there was a couple of little gaps in your knitting, you can just pull the stitches with your another knitting needle just to tighten up the little gaps. But if you've pulled your yarn quite firmly, you shouldn't have to. And on the other side as well, it's it's nice. It's a lovely diagonal line there for your heel. Yeah, I'm quite happy with that, and I hope you're happy with your heel as well. So that's it for these tutorials. I hope you found them useful. I'm not going to do a tutorial for the colour work. The pattern's self-explanatory. It's a colour work chart working in the round. As I say, I hope you found them useful, and remember you can insert the heel tab and the heel into any sock of your choice. Thanks very much for watching. Bye for now.